Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. I'm Will Cain, in for Tucker. A day after the FBI's raid on former President Donald Trump, we're starting to see what a permanent national split looks like. A divorce. Nobody wants to say it out loud, but it's true. And this is not simply a break between Democrats and Republicans. No, that's too simple. What we're seeing is a divide between people who are willing to use the power of the state to silence their opponents and those who are unwilling. What's held this country together since the Civil War? It's not the federal code. It's not even the Bill of Rights, as important as that document is. Remember, the Soviet Union had a Bill of Rights. It guaranteed freedom of speech and equal rights. But in practice, the Bolsheviks assassinated their political opponents and sent their dissidents to the gulags. As Beria boasted, "Show me the man, I'll show you the crime." Now, what's kept us functioning through the centuries where the Bolsheviks failed is that our Constitution separated powers and prevented a uniparty. We've also had an unwritten understanding that state power will not be used, shall not be used for improper political purposes. The law must be enforced equally without political considerations. And once you lose that common understanding, it's mutually assured destruction. No one has any reason to uphold the system, so the system will collapse. The late Antonin Scalia made this point back in October of 2011, speaking before the Senate Judiciary Committee. It's one of the most important videos you can watch, and here it is.
The response I will get, and you will get this from almost any American, including the woman that he was talking to at the supermarket, the answer would be freedom of speech, freedom of the press, no unreasonable searches and seizures, no quartering of troops in hope, those marvelous provisions of the Bill of Rights. But then I tell them, if you think that a Bill of Rights is what sets us apart, you're crazy. Every banana republic in the world has a Bill of Rights, just words on paper, what our framers would have called a parchment guarantee. And the reason is that the real constitution of the Soviet Union, you think of the word constitution, it doesn't mean a bill, it means structure. Say a person has a sound constitution, has a sound structure. The real constitution of the Soviet Union, which is what our framers debated that whole summer in Philadelphia in 1787. They didn't talk about the Bill of Rights. That was an afterthought, wasn't it? That constitution of the Soviet Union did not prevent the centralization of power in one person or in one party. And when that happens, the game is over. The Bill of Rights is just what our framers would call a parchment guarantee.
The game is over. A parchment guarantee. Most Americans now, by the way, in both parties, believe we're living in a banana republic that was just described by Scalia. The Trafalgar Group recently found that 79% of Americans believe the justice system protects political insiders. 2/3 of Democrats believe that. And it's not hard to see why. The president's son can commit multiple felonies, prostitution, corruption, and the federal authorities will just ignore them. In fact, they'll call them Russian disinformation. A sitting member of Congress can share bodily fluids and potentially classified materials, presumably not one and the same, with a Chinese spy, and no one in the FBI or the media will say a word. Millions of migrants can illegally cross the border, and you're not supposed to notice. But when the president's home is raided for the first time in American history, those very same cable news propagandists will celebrate it as a win for the rule of law. What's in that warrant that authorized this raid exactly? And why was a low-level magistrate judge, an Obama donor, who defended Jeffrey Epstein's associates, the one who approved the warrant? They don't care about any of this. They're just happy that Donald Trump was targeted.
Attorney General Merrick Garland has said in recent weeks more than once that no one is above the law, including anyone who happened to be president.
An ex-president is not above the law.
There is no person in this country who's above the law.
In America, nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law, not even a president or a former president of the United States.
No one is above the law, except for Swalwell and Clinton and Hunter Biden. They're mocking you, just as Beria mocked his victims. We've been building to this moment for quite some time. For the last 4 years, anyone who challenged permanent Washington has been targeted by the FBI. They've been waking up to pre-dawn SWAT team raids, with CNN in tow. They're getting criminally charged and bankrupted, not because they committed any crimes, but because the FBI wanted them silenced. Before the FBI's interview, you remember this story of Michael Flynn at the White House in 2017. The FBI's Director of Counterintelligence, Bill Priestap, he authored a handwritten note about his plan to entrap Flynn. Quote, "What is our goal?" Priestap wrote. "Truth, admission, or get him to lie so we can prosecute him or get him fired." We all know then what happened next. According to a partisan FBI agent named Peter Strzok, he's not the most impartial of sources, Flynn told agents he wasn't sure if he talked about sanctions with the Russian ambassador. That's it. Now keep in mind, talking about sanctions with a foreign country is legal and expected when you're the national security advisor. But for that, the FBI ruined Michael Flynn. He had to sell his home. And where's Bill Priestap? Collecting a government pension. No raid, no jail. The same is true, by the way, for Kevin Kleinsmith. Do you remember him? He's the FBI lawyer who falsified a FISA warrant application to secure the wiretap on Flynn. He admitted it. He didn't spend any days in jail, not one day in jail. He wasn't even disbarred from being an attorney. And as for Jim Comey, the FBI director at the time, well, he bragged about the FBI.
You look at this White House now, and it's hard to imagine two FBI agents ending up in the sit room. How did that happen?
I sent them. Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration. I thought it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over. And so we placed a call to Flynn, said, hey, we're sending a couple guys over. Hope you'll talk to them. He said, sure. Nobody else was there. They interviewed him in a conference room at the White House Situation Room, and he lied to them. And that's what he's now pled guilty to.
What did he think they were coming over there for?
I don't think he knew. No, we didn't tell him.
To them, it's comedy. To Americans, it's a banana republic. Declassified documents, of course, prove that the FBI knew the Clinton campaign invented many of the Russia collusion allegations that were the pretext for the entire probe. James Comey went ahead with that comedy, with that banana republic action anyway. That's because what we've had for years is an FBI that's interested in really one mission, and that is eliminating rivals of the Uniparty and permanent Washington. As with the Bolsheviks, they use pretexts to get what they want. Last night's raid of the former president's home had nothing to do with the retention of classified materials. You can handle missing records with a subpoena. You don't come kicking the doors in and blow opening safes. And that's why the feds never raided the home of Sandy Berger, who literally shoved classified documents in his socks. Or Hillary Clinton's home. Or David Petraeus, who shared military intel with his lover. No raid. The Wall Street Journal, by the way, is now reporting the feds claim this raid had something to do with cocktail napkins and notes from Kim Jong-un. Right. Everyone knows what this was really about. Finding something, anything, they can use to keep Donald Trump from running for president. Now, here is the interesting question. Why? Well, he's a threat to the entrenched, unelected power in Washington, the biggest threat ever faced. From the beginning, Donald Trump was an outsider, but not just an outsider that declared war on the military-industrial complex. He stopped buying their weapons and sending them to Ukraine, so they impeached Trump. As Axios reported just 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump plans to gut the federal bureaucracy if he's reelected in 2024, taking a butcher knife to the administrative state. That means eliminating career government employees installed by Barack Obama. And nothing terrifies a career bureaucrat more than losing their grip on power. Now look, on the one hand, some politicians in both parties do appear to recognize this threat. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, for example, is calling this raid a sign that we're now living in, quote, a banana republic. And Andrew Cuomo, a Democrat who's no stranger to the damage of open-ended investigations, just called the raid a major threat to the credibility of the FBI. On the other hand, the Republicans' leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, waited 24 hours before he demanded answers from the FBI. Tim Scott of South Carolina says we need to wait and let the process play out. John Cornyn sent out a few retweets. Kevin McCarthy calling for reforms. Really? How do you reform this? This is the FBI director on August 4th.
Do you agree that the allegation of secret collusion between President Trump and Russia was a hoax? Yes or no?
I don't think that's the terminology I would use, but I think there's been a lot written on this subject, and both in the special counsel's report, the inspector general's
Just
report.
Yes or no is fine.
So that's not a term I would use.
Okay. Do you agree that the Hunter Biden laptop was not Russia disinformation?
Now you're asking about an ongoing investigation that I expect our folks to pursue aggressively, and I can't comment on that.
Okay, and you possess the laptop, right?
Again, I can't discuss that in an ongoing investigation.
You know, many people like to point out that Christopher Wray was appointed by Trump. Christopher Wray is a member of Permanent Washington who doesn't like to discuss anything, including why his agents concocted a plan to kidnap the governor of Michigan, or how many FBI agents were active on January 6th. The FBI gets away with all this because they are permanent fixtures in Washington, as is your national media. Andy McCabe is always on CNN these days. Peter Strzok and John Brennan and James Clapper, regular fixtures on MSNBC. So is former FBI counterintelligence official Frank Fugalizzi. Watch this revealing moment from last night. Fugalizzi informs MSNBC producers that the term raid is a little strong. So MSNBC changed the chyron in real time to obey his command.
Agents, by the way, don't like the word raid. They don't like it. It sounds like it's some kind of, extrajudicial, non-legal thing. It's the execution of a search warrant. It's a court-authorized search warrant.
The takeaway here is not that the media is biased, you know that, or that the FBI should prosecute Hunter Biden for, as in the famous words of Stephen A. Smith, smoking crack. You know that as well. We're not calling on the FBI to raid Eric Swalwell, even though he's been sleeping with Fang Fang, the Chinese spy. What we're saying is that if the Biden administration doesn't immediately take steps to dismantle this uniparty, to stop the FBI's corruption, to take down Permanent Washington, to terminate Christopher Wray and Merrick Garland, for starters, then these kind of raids will not end. Republicans will eventually take power, and then they'll do the same thing 10 times over. They'll raid Swalwell and Garland and Hunter Biden, and that'll be just the beginning. And will that be good for the country? Probably not, but it will be inevitable. Victor Davis Hanson is a senior fellow